Captain John Miller stood at attention as the massive alien ship approached the Earth Defense Force vessel Pathfinder. His palms were sweaty inside his uniform gloves, but his face remained calm. Humanity's first contact with an advanced alien, civilization was about to happen, and he was in charge of making sure it went well. "All systems functioning normally, Captain," said Communications Officer Diane Lewis. Her voice was steady, but John could hear the tension behind her words. "The alien vessel is hailing us. Open the channel," John ordered. He straightened his back and faced the main view screen. The screen flickered to life, revealing a tall, slender alien with iridescent blue skin and 4 dark eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. The creature wore an elaborate uniform covered in what appeared to be military decorations. "Greetings, Earth vessel," the alien said in perfect English. "I am High Commander Zextor of the Veldari Commonwealth. We have been observing your world for some time." John nodded respectfully. "On behalf of the United Earth Government, I welcome you. I am Captain John Miller of the Earth Defense Force." The alien's upper eyes blinked slowly. "We request permission to send a diplomatic delegation to discuss formal relations between our peoples." 2 hours later, John stood in the Pathfinder's conference room alongside Dr. Olivia Wright, Earth's leading xenobiologist and the chief scientist on the mission. 6 Veldari delegates sat across the table, their posture rigid and formal. "Your propulsion systems are quite quaint," said one of the aliens, who had introduced himself as Science Minister Kelvax. He gestured to the technical specifications that Earth had shared as a gesture of goodwill. "Fusion drives? We abandoned such primitive technology over 3 centuries ago." Dr. Wright's pen pressed harder against her notebook, but her face revealed nothing. John noticed her knuckles turning white. "Our technology serves our needs," John replied diplomatically. High Commander Zextor made a sound that the translation software interpreted as laughter. "Of course it does. Just as a child's crawling serves until they learn to walk." He turned to his companions. "They haven't even discovered quantum fold principles." The aliens exchanged amused glances. John felt his jaw tighten, but maintained his professional demeanor. "Perhaps you would be willing to share some insights about your quantum fold technology?" Dr. Wright asked, her voice carefully neutral. "Scientific exchange could benefit both our species." Science Minister Kelvax waved a 3-fingered hand dismissively. "Your scientific understanding is centuries behind what would be necessary. To comprehend even the basics, it would be like trying to explain orbital mechanics to an insect." The meeting continued for several more hours, with the Veldari alternating between condescending explanations of galactic politics and thinly veiled mockery of human achievements. By the time the alien delegation returned to their ship, promising to come back with a formal diplomatic proposal in 1 Earth week, John's patience was stretched to its limit. "They think we're children," Dr. Wright said once they were alone. She flipped through her notes, her eyes narrowed with determination. "Did you notice how they kept referencing their quantum fold drives?" John nodded. "Hard to miss. Apparently, it's their favorite way to feel superior." "I recorded everything they said about it," Olivia replied. "They were showing off, revealing more than they probably should have. Their technology allows them to travel vast distances almost instantly by folding space-time." "Like wormholes?" John asked. "Similar principle, but more controlled and temporary. The way Kelvax described the energy requirements and calculation. Times I think there might be significant limitations they're not admitting." Back on Earth, President Grace Thompson sat at the head of the Emergency Security Council table. The underground facility beneath the White House was filled with the top military and scientific advisors in the nation. "So they think we're pets," the president said flatly after watching the recorded first contact meeting. "Amusing little creatures they can pat on the head." General William Porter nodded grimly. "Their technology is significantly advanced, Madam President, especially their faster-than-light capabilities. If they decided to attack, our current defenses would be inadequate. But they've shown no hostile intentions yet," Secretary of State Nancy Baker pointed out. "They seem more interested in establishing diplomatic relations. Diplomatic relations where they clearly consider themselves the superior partner," President Thompson replied. She turned to the scientist sitting quietly at the end of the table. Dr. Garcia, you've reviewed Dr. Wright's notes about their quantum fold technology. What are your thoughts? Dr. Alan Garcia pushed his glasses up his nose. He was younger than most others in the room, barely 40, but his reputation as a theoretical physicist was unmatched. Their technology is impressive, but not magical, he said. Based on Dr. Wright's observations and recordings, I believe we might actually have an advantage they don't suspect. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to him. For years, my team has been working on theoretical models for faster-than-light travel. The Military Science Division considered them impractical and cut our funding last year. He couldn't keep a note of satisfaction from his voice. But what the Veldari described confirms several of my key hypotheses. More importantly, I noticed something they seem to take for granted as a limitation, which is, President Thompson leaned forward. Their quantum fold drives require extensive calculations and massive energy buildup before activation. From what I could gather, each jump needs at least several minutes of preparation. But I believe we could create a system that sacrifices some range for near instantaneous activation. General Porter frowned. What good is faster-than-light travel if it can't go as far? In military terms? Everything, Dr. Garcia replied with unusual intensity. Imagine a ship that could jump short distances with no warning. In combat, it would be like fighting an opponent who can teleport behind you between punches. President Thompson's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. How theoretical is this, and how long would it take to develop? With proper funding, facilities, and using what we've learned from the Veldari? 5 years, maybe less, Dr. Garcia said. The president was quiet for a long moment. What you're suggesting is that while they're busy mocking our technology, we could be developing something that might actually surpass theirs in certain applications? Dr. Garcia nodded. Yes, Madam President. They're so convinced of their superiority that they've revealed critical information. They don't see us as a threat or even as equals. That's their mistake. President Thompson stood up. Then effective. Immediately I'm authorizing a new classified research initiative. We'll call it Project Quantum Leap. Dr. Garcia will head the scientific team. General Porter, assign your best military engineers to work with him. She looked around the table. Meanwhile, we'll proceed with diplomatic relations with the Veldari. We'll be respectful, we'll be friendly, but we will remember every condescending remark and every piece of information they carelessly reveal. John Miller's face appeared on the main screen, transmitted from the Pathfinder. Madam President, the Veldari have requested another meeting tomorrow. Tell them we're looking forward to it, Captain, President Thompson replied with a small smile. And remind Dr. Wright to keep taking detailed notes. 5 years passed since Earth's first contact with the Veldari. In that time, the aliens had established a permanent embassy in Geneva and begun what they called cultural and technological exchange. This exchange mostly consisted of Veldari, representatives talking down to humans and setting up trade deals that greatly favored their side. Far beneath the surface of the moon, in a facility hidden under the Sea of Tranquility, Dr. Alan Garcia watched as technicians made final adjustments to the prototype drive. The chamber was enormous, carved from lunar rock and reinforced with advanced materials. In the center sat a sleek cylindrical device about the size of a small car. System check complete, called out Senior Engineer Lisa Johnson from her station. She was a brilliant mechanical engineer who had originally designed cooling systems for fusion reactors before being recruited for Project Quantum Leap. Power flow is stable. Dr. Garcia nodded but kept his eyes on the readouts. Let's run the simulation again. I want to be absolutely certain before we attempt the first live test. The simulation has been run 17 times already, Lisa said. All successful. And we'll run it 100 more times if that's what it takes, Dr. Garcia replied. He looked up at the observation deck where Commander Susan Rodriguez stood watching the proceedings. She caught his glance and gave a slight nod of approval. Commander Rodriguez had been skeptical when she was first assigned as military liaison to the project. Now, after 5 years of working alongside the scientists, she was their strongest advocate in the Earth Defense Force. Begin Simulation 18, Dr. Garcia ordered. On the massive screens that lined the lab, a virtual representation of the Blink drive activated. Unlike the Veldari quantum fold technology, which created a temporary wormhole between 2 points in space, the blink drive actually shifted the vessel slightly out of normal space-time before re-entering at the target coordinates. The simulation showed the test vessel disappearing from its starting position and reappearing instantly 1 astronomical unit away, approximately the distance from Earth to the Sun. Simulation complete, Lisa announced. All parameters within acceptable ranges. Dr. Garcia finally allowed himself a small smile. I think we're ready for a real test. 3 days later, the experimental vessel EDF Defiance hovered in space beyond the dark side of the moon, hidden from Earth and any possible Veldari observation. The ship was small by military standards, just large enough for a crew of 5, but it represented humanity's greatest technological achievement. It was equipped with conventional engines for normal travel, and the prototype blink drive for what the team hoped would be history's first human faster-than-light jump. In the pilot's seat sat Kevin Black, the best test pilot in the Earth Defense Force. His calm demeanor was legendary, but even he felt butterflies in his stomach as he prepared for the test. All systems are green, he reported to Mission Control. Blink drive is powered and ready. Acknowledged Defiance, came Commander Rodriguez's voice through the comm system. You are cleared to proceed with Test Jump Alpha. Kevin took a deep breath. Initiating blink drive in 3, 2, 1. He pressed the activation button. There was a brief sensation like the world turning inside out, a flicker of something that wasn't quite darkness, and then the stars in the view screen shifted, slightly. The entire process took less than a second. Jump complete, Kevin reported, his voice steady despite his racing heart. He checked his instruments. We've arrived at the exact coordinates. Travel time was immeasurable by our instruments. It appears to have been instantaneous. Cheers erupted over the comm channel. In the lunar facility, Dr. Garcia and Lisa embraced briefly before stepping apart, embarrassed. Commander Rodriguez maintained her professional composure, but a wide smile broke across her face. Defiance, prepare for return jump, she ordered. Kevin activated the drive again. Another flicker, and the Defiance was back at its starting position. It works, Dr. Garcia whispered, more to himself than anyone else. It actually works. In the months that followed, the EDF Defiance completed hundreds of test jumps of increasing distance. Each success proved that the blink drive was more than just a theoretical breakthrough. It was a practical technology that could be deployed on a fleet scale. Meanwhile, in Geneva, the Veldari ambassador Nev Lox requested a tour of Earth's military installations as part of the ongoing diplomatic relations. President Grace Thompson, now in her second term, personally approved a carefully planned itinerary. They'll be shown exactly what we want them to see, she told her Security Council. Nothing more. The Veldari delegation visited outdated missile silos, conventional naval bases, and training facilities for ground troops. They were not shown the 12 new warships being constructed in secret orbital facilities, each designed to incorporate the now perfected blink drive technology. At the end of the tour, Ambassador Nevlox met with President Thompson in the Oval Office. The aliens' 4 eyes blinked in their distinctive pattern that humans had learned indicated amusement. Your military capabilities are quaint, the ambassador said. But I suppose they are adequate for a species that has only recently achieved space travel. President Thompson smiled politely. We do what we can with what we have, Ambassador. Indeed, the High Council has been quite pleased with our arrangement thus far. Your planet's resources are proving valuable to our manufacturing sector. What? The ambassador didn't say. But what Earth intelligence had discovered through careful analysis of trade documents was that the Veldari were systematically exploiting Earth's mineral resources while providing minimal technology in return. The few technological gifts they had shared were carefully selected to avoid anything that might help humans develop more advanced space capabilities. After the ambassador left, President Thompson called a secure meeting with her most trusted advisors. How much longer until Project Quantum Leap is ready for full deployment, she asked. General William Porter, now chairman of the Joint Chiefs, consulted his tablet. The first squadron of blink-capable ships will be ready in 3 months. All 12 vessels of the first fleet will be operational within 6 months. And the Veldari still have no idea? None, Madam President. They're so convinced of their technological superiority that they haven't even considered the possibility that we might have developed something like this. Dr. Garcia, who now held the position of Special Science Advisor to the President, added, "Their arrogance is their weakness. They've been careless in what they've revealed, thinking we're too primitive to make use of the information." President Thompson nodded thoughtfully. "Keep me updated on any changes in the diplomatic situation. The Veldari have been making noises about a closer relationship between our worlds. I suspect they're planning to turn us into some kind of client state." "The intelligence supports that assessment," General Porter confirmed. "Our analysts believe they are preparing to offer Earth protected status within their Commonwealth, which would effectively make us a vassal planet. Then we need to be ready before they make that move," the President said firmly. "Operation Silent Thunder remains our contingency plan. If the Veldari try to force us into submission, they'll learn exactly how primitive we really are." As the meeting concluded, none of them noticed the small maintenance drone in the corner of the room. It looked like standard White House equipment, but inside was Veldari surveillance technology. The aliens weren't quite as careless as humans believed, but they were still underestimating just how far Earth's technology had advanced. Ambassador Nevlock stood before the United Earth Council, his tall blue form towering over the human representatives. The Grand Chamber in Geneva fell silent as he activated a holographic display that showed a massive fleet of Veldari warships. "High Command of the Veldari Commonwealth has made a decision," he announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Earth has reached a developmental stage where closer guidance is required. We are establishing a protective governorship over your world effective immediately." President Grace Thompson rose from her seat, her face betraying none of the anger she felt. "And if we refuse this generous offer?" All 4 of the ambassadors' eyes narrowed. "This is not an offer, President Thompson. It is a notification. The Commonwealth has determined this is the best course for both our peoples." "I see," President Thompson said calmly. "And these ships you're showing us?" "A protection fleet, already en route to your solar system. They will arrive within 7 days to help establish the new administrative structures." On the screens around the chamber, news feeds suddenly lit up with urgent broadcasts. The Veldari had already struck, destroying the human research stations on Mars and the mining outposts in the asteroid belt. Hundreds of lives had been lost in what the aliens called a necessary security action. The Earth representatives erupted in outrage, but the Veldari ambassador simply raised a 3-fingered hand for silence. These unfortunate measures were required due to illegal research activities detected at those facilities, he said. The protection fleet will establish order and ensure humanity's proper development under Veldari guidance. After the emergency meeting, President Thompson gathered with her crisis team in a secure underground bunker. The surveillance-proof room was 30 meters below the Swiss soil, its walls lined with technology designed to prevent any form of eavesdropping. "They found out about Project Quantum Leap," General Porter said grimly. "The attacks targeted our secondary research facilities, but not the main lunar facility," Dr. Garcia pointed out. "They still don't know about that." President Thompson paced the length of the conference table. "How ready are we? The full truth, not what you think I want to hear." Commander Susan Rodriguez, recently promoted to Admiral and now in charge of Earth's secret fleet, spoke up. "The first 12 blink drive ships are fully operational, Madam President. Crews are trained and ready. We've been running combat simulations for months. But we haven't tested the drives in actual combat conditions," General Porter reminded them. "And we're facing a fleet of at least 30 Veldari warships according to our intelligence. 30 ships that have no idea what we've developed," Admiral Rodriguez countered. "The element of surprise will be our greatest advantage." President Thompson stopped pacing and placed her hands flat on the table. "The Veldari have shown their true intentions. They've already killed our people. I am authorizing Operation Silent Thunder, effective immediately." The next day, High Commander Zextor arrived personally to oversee the establishment of Veldari rule on Earth. His massive command ship took position in high Earth orbit, surrounded by 5 battle cruisers. The rest of the fleet formed a blockade around the planet, their weapons ready to fire on any city that resisted. Your world leaders will meet with me aboard my vessel to formalize the new arrangement, Zextor announced in a global broadcast. Resistance is both futile and unnecessary. Under Veldari guidance, humanity will advance more quickly than you could on your own. What the Veldari didn't know was that deep beneath the lunar surface, Earth's secret fleet was preparing for action. 12 sleek warships, each equipped with advanced weapons systems and the revolutionary blink drive, waited in a hidden dock. Their black hulls absorbed light rather than reflecting it, making them nearly invisible to standard sensors. At their center was the flagship EDF Reckoning, commanded by Admiral Paul Davis, a veteran of Earth's old Space Force. "All ships report ready, Admiral," his executive officer said. Admiral Davis nodded. "Commence Operation Silent Thunder. May God have mercy on them because we won't." On Earth, President Thompson stood before the cameras, addressing her people and the watching Veldari. "After careful consideration of the Veldari Commonwealth's proposal, I have decided to accept their offer of protection," she announced, her voice heavy with apparent resignation. "I will be traveling to High Commander Zextor's vessel to discuss the details of our new relationship." The shuttle that carried President Thompson to the Veldari command ship also carried Ambassador Frank Miller, who had been chosen as Earth's chief negotiator. What the Veldari didn't know was that Miller carried a quantum-entangled communication device, developed by Dr. Olivia Wright based on principles gleaned from years of studying Veldari technology. The device could send an instantaneous signal, regardless of distance, a signal that would trigger Operation Silent Thunder. Aboard the Veldari flagship, High Commander Zextor greeted the human delegation with the smug satisfaction of a predator who had cornered its prey. "President Thompson, how wise of you to accept reality," he said. "Your cooperation will make this transition much smoother for your people." "We're a practical species, High Commander," Thompson replied with a thin smile. "We recognize when we're outmatched." The Veldari led them to a grand conference room with a view of Earth through a massive viewport. Zextor gestured to the beautiful blue planet below. "Your world has great potential," he said. "Under our guidance, perhaps in a century or two, humanity might even be permitted limited interstellar travel." Ambassador Miller stepped forward. "If I may ask, High Commander, how many worlds are under Veldari protection?" 17 systems. "Now recognize the benefits of Commonwealth guidance," Zextor replied proudly. "Earth will be the 18th. And your homeworld, Veld Prime, I believe it's called. It must be well protected while so much of your fleet is here," Miller continued innocently. The High Commander made the clicking sound that humans had learned was Veldari laughter. "Veld Prime has no need for a large defensive fleet. No species would dare attack the heart of the Commonwealth." "Of course not," Miller agreed. He adjusted his tie, pressing the hidden button on the quantum communicator. "That would be unthinkable. 30 light-years away, in orbit around the Veldari homeworld of Veld Prime, space itself seemed to hiccup. In 12 different locations surrounding the planet, Earth's secret fleet materialized from nowhere. The blink drives had worked perfectly, transporting the ships across interstellar space in an instant. Admiral Davis stood on the bridge of the EDF Reckoning, looking down at the gleaming Veldari capital. Their sensors showed minimal orbital defenses, just as Earth intelligence had predicted. The Veldari were so confident in their technological superiority that they had never considered the possibility of a direct attack on their homeworld. "All ships report successful transit," his tactical officer announced. "Weapons locked on planetary defense installations. We have complete surprise, sir." Admiral Davis opened a channel to all ships. "This is Admiral Davis. Remember your training and remember our mission. We are not here for vengeance. We are here to ensure humanity's freedom. Execute Phase 2. Back at Earth, Ambassador Miller's communicator vibrated against his chest, confirming that the fleet had successfully arrived at Veld Prime. He allowed himself a small smile as he continued the negotiations, knowing that the balance of power had just shifted dramatically. High Commander Zextor was in the middle of explaining the new governance structure for Earth when an aide rushed into the conference room. The aide whispered urgently into Zextor's ear, and the High Commander's blue skin paled to a sickly gray. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, turning to President Thompson and Ambassador Miller. "How have your ships reached Veld Prime? This is impossible." President Thompson raised an eyebrow. "I'm not sure what you mean, High Commander. All of our ships are accounted for within our solar system." Her voice was calm, but there was a new steel behind her words. Zextor slammed his three-fingered hand on the table. "Do not play games with me. Somehow you have managed to position warships around our homeworld." He activated a display screen, showing a live feed from Veld Prime. 12 black ships hovered in orbit around the gleaming Veldari capital world, their weapons trained on key defense installations. "That's impossible," President Thompson said, feigning surprise. "Our ships don't have the capability to travel that far. You've told us many times how primitive our propulsion technology is." Ambassador Miller adjusted his glasses as he studied the screen. "Those vessels don't appear to match any Earth Defense Force designs I'm familiar with." Zextor's four eyes narrowed dangerously. "You will order your ships to withdraw immediately, or we will destroy your planet." "I would reconsider that threat," Ambassador Miller said calmly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device that projected a holographic display of the Earth blockade. The image showed chaos as several Veldari ships suddenly found themselves under attack from vessels that seemed to appear out of nowhere, blinking into existence behind them, firing, and then disappearing again before the Veldari could respond. Commander Susan Rodriguez led the Earth counterattack from her ship, the EDF Defiance. Her crew executed the battle plan with precision, using the blink drives exactly as they had practiced in countless simulations. "Target locked," called out her weapons officer. "Firing!" The Defiance unleashed a barrage of missiles at the nearest Veldari cruiser, striking its engines. Before the aliens could return fire, Rodriguez gave the order. Blink! The ship vanished, reappearing 3,000 kilometers away on the opposite side of the Veldari formation. Two more Earth vessels executed similar maneuvers, appearing, firing, and disappearing before the enemy could track them. "They can't target what they can't predict," Rodriguez said with grim satisfaction. "Continue the pattern." The Veldari fleet commanders, trained in conventional space warfare, found themselves unable to counter these tactics. Their quantum fold drives required minutes of calculations and energy buildup before they could jump. The human ships were blinking multiple times per minute, making them virtually impossible to hit. Back on the Veldari flagship, High Commander Zextor watched in horror as his blockade fleet began to fall apart. 3 cruisers were already heavily damaged, and the rest were firing wildly into empty space where Earth ships had been seconds earlier. "This is some sort of trick," he growled. "Your technology cannot do this." President Thompson smiled coldly. "It appears you've underestimated us, High Commander. While you were busy mocking our primitive technology, we were studying yours, and improving upon it." "Impossible," Zextor shouted. "The quantum fold principles require, we're not using." "Quantum fold technology," Ambassador Miller interrupted. "Our scientists developed something new. We call it the blink drive." On the screen showing Veld Prime, Admiral Paul Davis opened a communication channel to the Veldari Planetary Defense Command. His message was broadcast planet-wide, reaching the High Council and millions of ordinary Veldari citizens. "This is Admiral Paul Davis of the Earth Defense Force. We have no desire for war or conquest. Our weapons are targeted solely on military installations, not civilian areas. We demand immediate withdrawal of all Veldari forces from the Sol system and recognition of Earth's full sovereignty." The Veldari High Council, faced with the unthinkable scenario of enemy ships in orbit around their homeworld, immediately called an emergency session. Their military leaders assured them that the human ships must be using some kind of deception. Perhaps they were just holograms or small drones designed to look like warships. This theory was disproven when Admiral Davis ordered a demonstration. One of the Earth ships fired a precision strike at an uninhabited military training island in Veld Prime's southern ocean. The resulting explosion was visible from space, a clear message of Earth's capabilities. On Earth, the battle continued. Commander Rodriguez's tactics were working perfectly. The Veldari blockade ships, unable to predict where the Earth vessels would appear next, were reduced to defensive postures, trying desperately to protect themselves rather than threatening the planet below. "Status report," Rodriguez called out as the Defiance blinked to a new position. 3 enemy vessels disabled, her tactical officer reported. 4 more heavily damaged. Our fleet reports minimal damage. The blink drives are performing better than expected. Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile. "Continue the attack pattern. Focus on weapons and engines. We want to disable, not destroy." In the Veldari flagship's conference room, a new message came through from the High Council. Zextor read it, his hands trembling slightly, before looking up at President Thompson. "The Council demands to know how this is possible," he said. "Your ships move through space in a way that defies our understanding of physics." President Thompson shook her head. "Not at all. The principles are quite sound. Your scientists were simply too convinced of your own superiority to consider alternative approaches." Dr. Olivia Wright had spent years studying every casual remark, every technical reference the Veldari had let slip. Her team had pieced together the fundamentals of their quantum fold technology. But it was Dr. Alan Garcia who had recognized the key limitation. The Veldari system required massive computational resources and energy buildup for each jump. The Earth blink drive sacrificed maximum range for speed of activation. Where Veldari ships could travel hundreds of light years in a single jump, Earth vessels were limited to about 30 light years. But the blink drive could be activated in less than a second, with minimal energy requirements, making it vastly superior in combat situations. "The High Council is asking for terms," Zextor said finally, his voice hollow with defeat. "What does Earth want?" Ambassador Miller placed a datapad on the table. "These are our requirements. Immediate withdrawal of all Veldari forces from our system, recognition of Earth's full sovereignty, renegotiation of all previous treaties, on equal terms and reparations for the lives lost on Mars and in the asteroid belt." Zextor stared at the pad for a long moment before picking it up. "And if we refuse?" President Thompson's gaze was unwavering. "Then we will demonstrate that the blink drive has applications beyond military use. Our ships could deliver packages to specific coordinates on Veld Prime with pinpoint accuracy, packages that your planetary defenses would have no time to intercept." Threat was clear. Earth would not hesitate to escalate if necessary. "I will convey your terms to the High Council," Zextor said stiffly. "But know this, the Commonwealth has many allies. This conflict may be just beginning." President Thompson stood up, straightening her jacket. "For your sake, I hope not, because while you've been watching us, we've been watching you too. And we know exactly where all 17 of your protected worlds are located." The message was clear. Earth was no longer a primitive species to be conquered. They were a force to be reckoned with, a fact the Veldari were learning far too late. 3 months after the confrontation with the Veldari, Earth was a changed world. The secret of the blink drive was now public knowledge, and humanity had taken its first real steps into the galactic community. The Veldari Commonwealth, once so dismissive of human technology, had withdrawn all forces from the Sol system and signed a new treaty recognizing Earth as a sovereign power. Captain John Miller stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned EDF Horizon, watching as a Veldari diplomatic vessel approached the space station where the first galactic summit was about to begin. The irony wasn't lost on him. 5 years ago, he had been in charge of the first contact mission with these same aliens, who had treated humans like clever pets. Now they were coming to Earth as equals. "Feeling nostalgic, Captain?" Dr. Olivia Wright asked as she joined him at the viewport. Her role in studying Veldari technology had earned her a prominent position as Earth's chief scientific liaison. "Just thinking about how much has changed," John replied. "Remember how Zextor kept calling our fusion drives quaint?" Olivia smiled. "And now half the galaxy wants to license our blink drive technology." That was perhaps the biggest surprise. in the aftermath of what was now called the Liberation Crisis. When news spread of how Earth had developed technology that in some ways surpassed the Veldari, other alien civilizations had quickly reached out to establish diplomatic relations. Many of them had also been treated as inferiors by the Veldari Commonwealth, and they saw humanity as a potential ally. On the main concourse of the station, President Grace Thompson prepared to welcome the delegates from 7 different species. The large circular chamber had been designed specifically for this historic meeting, with sections adapted to the environmental needs of each alien race. "Are you ready for this?" asked Frank Miller, who had been appointed Earth's first ambassador to galactic affairs after his successful handling of the Veldari negotiations. "As ready as anyone can be," the president replied. "Dr. Garcia says the universal translator should handle all the different languages." Dr. Alan Garcia had become something of a celebrity on Earth. His development of the blink drive had made him a household name, and children everywhere dreamed of becoming scientists. Like him, he had insisted on attending the summit personally to ensure that the translation technology worked properly. The doors to the chamber opened, and the alien delegations began to file in. The Veldari representatives entered last, led by a new ambassador. High Commander Zextor had been removed from his position after the disaster of the Liberation Crisis. The new ambassador, a younger Veldari named Trelvox, seemed less arrogant than his predecessor. "President Thompson," Trelvox said with a formal bow, "the Commonwealth extends its gratitude for your hospitality. We welcome all who come in peace," President Thompson replied evenly. As the summit got underway, discussions ranged from trade agreements to cultural exchanges. But the topic everyone was most interested in was technology sharing. The Veldari, now forced to recognize humans as technological equals, were particularly concerned about the spread of blink drive technology. "We must express our concern about unregulated distribution of faster-than-light technology," Trelvox said during the main session. The blink drive, while impressive, could destabilize established trade routes and defensive arrangements. Admiral Paul Davis, who had commanded Earth's fleet at Veld Prime and now served as Earth's military representative, leaned forward. "That's an interesting perspective from the civilization that refused to share any meaningful technology with us because we were too primitive to handle it." The representatives from the Krith Confederacy, a reptilian species that had suffered under Veldari protection for decades, made a sound that the translators interpreted as laughter. Trelvox's skin flushed a deeper blue, but he maintained his composure. "Past policies were perhaps misguided. The Commonwealth is proposing a new approach of mutual cooperation. Cooperation only offered when you discovered we were not as helpless as you thought," President Thompson observed. "But Earth is willing to look forward rather than backward. We propose an open technology exchange program with appropriate safeguards agreed upon by all parties." While the summit continued above, Commander Susan Rodriguez, recently promoted to Admiral, met with Kevin Black in a secure section of the station. The test pilot had become the lead trainer for Earth's expanding blink drive fleet. "How are the new ships performing?" Susan asked as they reviewed the latest test results. "Better than expected," Kevin replied. "The improved drive design allows for consecutive jumps with only a 3-second reset time. Dr. Garcia thinks we might get that down to 1 second with the next iteration." Susan nodded appreciatively. "And the range?" "Still holding at 32 light-years maximum for a single jump. But the navigational accuracy has improved significantly. We can now target locations with a margin of error less than 1 kilometer." This was the reality the Veldari and other species were struggling to accept. In just 5 years, humans had not only mastered faster-than-light travel, but had already begun improving upon their initial design. Earth ships could now perform maneuvers that Veldari vessels, with their cumbersome quantum fold technology, simply couldn't match. Back in the summit chamber, the various delegates had reached a tentative agreement on technology sharing protocols. The atmosphere had shifted from initial tension to cautious optimism. Even the Veldari representatives seemed to be adjusting to the new balance of power. During a break in the proceedings, Dr. Garcia found himself approached by a Veldari scientist named Min Lara, who had been watching him with obvious curiosity. "Your blink drive defies several principles we considered fundamental," she said without preamble. "How did you overcome the Curian energy threshold?" Dr. Garcia smiled. "We didn't. We went around it by shifting the vessel partially out of normal spacetime instead of creating a fold. It requires less energy but more precise calculations." "Fascinating," Minlara admitted. "Our scientists were so focused on perfecting the fold technique that we never seriously explored alternatives." "That's the danger of believing you already have all the answers," Dr. Garcia replied. "You stop looking for new questions." As the summit concluded, the delegates signed the first Galactic Cooperation Accord, establishing protocols for diplomatic relations, trade, and technology exchange. Earth, once considered an insignificant backwater planet, was now recognized as a full member of the galactic community. President Thompson addressed the assembled delegates one final time. "Today marks a new beginning, not just for Earth, but for all our worlds. We have learned that progress comes not from domination, but from cooperation, not from mockery, but from mutual respect." Later that evening, John Miller stood again at the viewport, watching as the alien ships departed one by one. The Veldari vessel was the last to leave, its elegant design still impressive despite everything that had happened. "Do you think they've really changed?" Olivia asked, joining him once more. John considered the question carefully. "I think they've learned that underestimating others is dangerous. Whether that's the same as respect, only time will tell." As the Veldari ship activated its quantum fold drive and disappeared into the darkness of space, Earth continued its own journey forward. The planet that had once been mocked for its primitive technology was now helping to shape the future of interstellar travel and cooperation. And in secret laboratories across the solar system, human scientists were already working on the next generation of innovations that would once again surprise a galaxy that was only beginning to understand that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology. It was the creativity and determination that had allowed them to develop it in the first place.